I'm Harrison Williams and this is CHC Talks, and this week we're going to be talking about where to spend money on your website. Basically, this all comes down to analysing what works on your website at the moment. So we've looked at expensive apps last week, and if you don't have that kind of budget to spend on a website, what we need to do is figure out where you can spend some money to make a difference in your business. So we're going to start off with the basics. And the basics are, is your website functional? I know it's a funny thing to say, but essentially with the updates of browsers and technology on the internet, we end up in a place where things are so fast moving, so fast changing, that a website that you have built before may not actually work anymore because of the updates that have happened. So it's worth just checking in on your website. Does it work? Does it do the basic things? When you click on things, does it go to the right place? Do things load? Does the map work? All of that kind of stuff. It's all really important to kind of just keep an eye on and make sure that these things are being updated at the same rate that technology is advancing. The second thing to do is look at what your content is saying. So an easy way that doesn't cost a fortune to kind of adapt your website and really make a difference to what you're doing is look at what you're saying on your site. So updating the content and having a clear narrative about what you're saying and where you're saying it and how you're saying it, and then breaking down those barriers that could be in the way of somebody buying your product or service are really important. And it doesn't cost a fortune to do, you can just analyse these things yourself. The second thing is to find out kind of what's really right for your business. Every business is different, and everything that everybody does online has to be adapted to them, and it needs to be bespoke to what they do. So there is no one-size-fits-all solution for a website, but there is a way of finding out what does work for your customers, for your business, for your service, for your product, whatever that looks like. And there's a couple of nice little tricks that you can do to kind of get to the bottom of this. Now, they do take a little bit of effort to put into place, but they are worth it. They do take time and they do take some effort to kind of make sure that you're doing it right and they're working properly and all that kind of stuff. But the first is A/B testing. So A/B testing is essentially a way in which you can control two different options at the same time. So say you have a personal preference for the colour blue for a button, say it's the Shop Now button, and somebody else in your company or somebody else you know says, oh no, it should definitely be green because green means go, or whatever colour this is that is important to somebody. And you don't know what to do here because somebody's giving you some legitimate advice, somebody's saying blue is the brand colour and you should stick with that. How do you determine between these two things? So one way you could do this is basically you have a blue button for a month and then a green button for a month. But you don't want to wait 2 months to analyse what's going on. So A/B testing allows you to change small bits of your website at the same time, and it splits the traffic on your site between the two. So half the traffic will see a blue button for Shop Now, and half the people will see a green button for Shop Now. And basically, you can analyse which one of these is most successful. So if the green button is more successful, it's a decision made on facts rather than on opinion. And that's really important, especially nowadays where we have so many conflicting ideas, everybody has an opinion about this kind of stuff. How do we really figure out what is important, what works, and why does it work? And A/B testing allows you to just cut straight through all of those opinions and look at what actually does work. So A/B testing, there's a whole bunch of different ways you can do that. For the most part, they're going to cost you something. So if you can't dedicate any budget at all, you can look at things like Google Analytics. Now, analytics in general is a vastly valuable thing to have on your site. So alongside kind of testing what works and what doesn't work, on a broader scale, you can look at what bits of content work. So if you have a blog, for example, what type of news articles are you publishing that people are responding to best? And if they are vastly more successful than another, so say you have a blog about cars and another one about boats, and everybody's really interested in boats, maybe it's time to reconsider whether or not you want to invest any time in writing something about cars if boats are far more successful. So analytics on a whole, you can delve into all those kinds of things. So are people spending more time on your about page? Are they spending more time on the shop page? Are they having a breakdown at some point where you can see all this traffic following your intended journey through your website, but they hit some stumbling block and suddenly everybody's leaving your website? Then you can kind of analyze what's going on with this page? Are there good things about it that are keeping people on the page? Are there bad things that are getting rid of people? And you need to iron out all these kinks and figure out what works and what doesn't. Analytics, a vastly important thing, doesn't cost very much to get going. And the third thing to talk about with figuring out where to spend your money and finding out what you can do with ultimate flexibility on your site is around third-party applications. So if you want a digital application like we were talking about last week, but you can't afford to invest massively in your site, you can effectively rent these things off companies who made them. So for more in-depth analytical reporting on your site, you can use something called Crazy Egg. Now Crazy Egg, basically like a turbocharged Google Analytics. It gives you a viewpoint of what people are doing on your website as a visual aspect. So you essentially get a picture of your website and it highlights what people do. Where do they linger their cursor? What buttons are they clicking on? Are they spending more time reading a certain bit of text? And this all comes up as a bit of a heat map. It's very clever, it's well worth doing, and then you can work on these bits that people are spending the most time on and interacting with the most. The second is expanding a little bit more towards an e-commerce perspective or tying into that automation feel. So MailChimp, I'm sure you've heard of before, they automate emails on a mass scale. So you can have a mailing list and you can send out emails to everybody on that mailing list with a click of a button. So handy from that perspective, but what they also do, you can upgrade this a little bit if you like. And if you have, say, an online shop and somebody puts something into their cart and then decides not to buy it, you can get MailChimp to do that automation, that application step that we were talking about last week, where it will send that potential customer an offer to say, hey, look, we noticed that you left a blue jacket in your shopping cart, and here's 10% off if you come back and buy it now. So handy little bit of development in MailChimp itself allows you to bring in that entire digital application feel. So although not quite as intelligent as a proper digital application, it is a nice way of leveraging that idea through a third party. And the last one is a user tracking piece. So again, we talked about this last week. And if you can't afford to develop a full-blown, full circle user tracking, HubSpot have a free CRM. So it's a little bit like Salesforce, I guess, where you can track the status of potential customers. What it also does is it allows you to insert a bit of script into your website, and then it can leverage a conversation back and forth with your website. So if a potential customer comes onto your website, it tells HubSpot about that occurrence, and then it will follow them around your website. So again, you're going to get some insight into directly what is happening with somebody who is a potential customer. So you send them an email, they open it up, they go to your website, they spend a little while on the service page, or they spend a little bit of about page, and then they hone in on one specific product or service offering, and then you can phone them up and say, hey, look, we noticed you were really interested in this thing. Would you be interested in kind of taking a trial or purchasing the product at a discount, or just selling what you do in some way? So that's a very broad spectrum, quick way of looking at where to spend some money on your website and some options if you can't afford bigger digital applications. And I hope you found this all too interesting.